New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to President Ibrahim Raisi of Iran, discusses situation in West Asia and the Israel-Hamas conflict. Israel rules out Gaza ceasefire without release of hostages. Prime Minister Netanyahu says the Hamas is using civilians as a human shield. US Foreign Minister meets his Turkish counterpart in Ankara as he wraps up a challenging West Asia tour. And the 54th International Film Festival of India to be held in Goa from 20th to the 28th of November. First up, the Indian Navy on Monday unveiled the crest of the warship Surat in the city of Surat in Gujarat. The warship is the fourth ship as part of the Project 15B stealth-guided missile destroyers, and it is named after the commercial capital of Gujarat, a city with a rich maritime and shipbuilding history.
Several policy initiatives taken by the Indian government to promote self-reliance in defence manufacturing have started yielding positive results. On Monday, the Chief Minister of the Indian state of Gujarat, Bhupendra Patel, unveiled the crest of Indian Navy's latest indigenous under-construction guided missile destroyer, Surat, in the city of Surat, Gujarat.
भारतीय नौसेना ने सूरत की समृद्ध समुद्री विरासत और शिप बिल्डिंग में उपलब्धियों को सेलिब्रेशन के तौर पर इस वॉरशिप का नाम सूरत रखा है। यह प्रधानमंत्री जी के प्रयासों और उनकी कड़ी मेहनत का ही परिणाम है कि आज गुजरात कई अन्य क्षेत्रों के साथ-साथ डिफेंस सेक्टर में भी अग्रणी बन रहा है।
The Chief of the Naval Staff, Admiral R. Hari Kumar, also attended the ceremony. Highlighting the importance of blue economy, the Indian Navy chief also spoke about the role of Indian Navy to protect the nation.
While Surat is rightly called the Diamond City of Bharat, it could also be termed as the start point of modern shipbuilding in the country. So Bharatiya Nausena, as the principal manifestation of Bharat's maritime power, fulfills this role by safeguarding our maritime interests, ensuring the free flow of trade and responding to any threats.
This warship was launched by Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on 17th March 2022 at Mumbai. Amongst the latest frontline warship projects under construction, the Project 15B program involves construction of 4 next-generation stealth-guided missile destroyers, of which Surat is the fourth and the last ship. She is presently under construction at the Mazagaon Docks Shipbuilders Limited, Mumbai. Indian Navy today is a highly capable, combat-ready, cohesive, credible and future-proof force. Surat was the most important maritime trade link between India and many other countries from the 16th to the 18th century. India's growing tech prowess is also being recognized globally as well. The Indian shipbuilder Goa Shipyards will build 24 cargo ships for operation in the Caspian Sea with the participation of the Russian Export Center by 2027. This was announced by the director of the Caspian International Integration Club, North-South, Dmitry Dubovich, at the International Forum in Astrakhan. First 4 ships are scheduled to be completed in the first quarter of 2024. The cargo ships will be deployed in the Caspian Sea. Their construction will be carried out with the participation of the Russian Export Center, and the project is planned to be implemented by 2027. Atmanirbhar Bharat, or Self-Reliant India initiative, has helped the country by encouraging indigenous design, development and manufacture of defense equipment in the country, thereby reducing dependency on imports in the long run. Fuzail Ahmed's report for DD India.
Now, as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict deepens, the Israeli military exposed a network of Hamas tunnels, command centers and rocket launchers beneath and adjacent to hospitals in northern Gaza. Meanwhile, Bulgaria's Prime Minister visited Israel and met with the country's Prime Minister in Jerusalem.
There seems to be no end in sight to the Israel-Hamas conflict. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed Bulgarian Prime Minister Nikolai Denkov in Jerusalem on Monday. Prime Minister Denkov expressed his shock at the atrocities committed by Hamas against civilians. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu said Hamas was using its own civilians as a human shield.
You expressed very much our positions. We think that we're not only fighting our war, we think we're fighting the battle of civilization against barbarism. If civilization doesn't prevail, barbarism will. Hamas is doing everything in its power to keep them in harm's way, sometimes at gunpoint.
The Israeli military on Sunday exposed a network of Hamas tunnels, command centers and rocket launchers beneath and adjacent to hospitals in northern Gaza. The Israeli military spokesperson said Hamas systematically exploits hospitals as part of its war machine.
Hamas systematically exploits hospitals as part of its war machine. The IDF identified a launch pad, meaning they launch rockets from here. I want to repeat it. They launch rockets on Israel 75 meters from an hospital. Why? They know precisely that if Israel will airstrike a launch pad like that, the hospital would be damaged.
Israeli spokesperson Hagari also made similar allegations regarding two other hospitals in northern Gaza, the Qatari-funded Sheikh Hamad Hospital and a hospital built by groups from Indonesia. However, the operator of the Indonesia hospital in Gaza has denied the accusation. 31 soldiers of Israel have been killed since the IDF began expanded ground operations in Gaza on October 27, fighting thousands of Hamas fighters who believe they can hold off Israel's advance in the warren of tunnels under the enclave. Israel has called on civilians in northern Gaza, the heart of Hamas's forces, to evacuate to the south for their own safety, and gave a specific time window on November 5 to do so.
The European Union has said that it will increase humanitarian aid to Gaza by more than $26 million. Meanwhile, the US says it is working towards a humanitarian pause in Gaza to allow for the release of people held hostage by the Hamas.
It's day 31. The conflict between the Israeli Defense Forces and Hamas is escalating. The Israeli army has opened a humanitarian corridor in northern Gaza to allow civilians to move south. The Jordanian Air Force airdropped urgent medical aid to the Jordanian Field Hospital in Gaza. Meanwhile, the United States has stepped up its diplomacy in the Middle East as Arab countries are anxious over the situation in Gaza. They are holding hectic parleys. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is visiting the region for the second time since October 7, met with his Turkish counterpart and discussed the Gaza conflict.
We just had a very good, lengthy, productive conversation with Foreign Minister Fidan here in Turkiye. We discussed the crisis in Gaza, and including the efforts to significantly expand humanitarian assistance.
Washington says it's working to ensure a humanitarian pause in Gaza, which would allow more aid to Palestinians and the release of hostages held by Hamas. Israeli forces are also on high alert on the northern front as tensions rise along the Lebanon border due to cross-border firing between militant groups and the IDF. Israel said it has uncovered a network of Hamas tunnels, command centers and rocket launchers under and around hospitals in northern Gaza.
Hamas systematically exploits hospitals as part of its war machine.
Hamas has taken more than 240 people hostage. It has been more than a month. Families are eagerly waiting for their loved ones. Israel has rejected calls for a ceasefire in Gaza until the release of all hostages held by Hamas. The West Asia is on the verge of a major humanitarian crisis. Abhishek Bose for DD India.
Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke with Iranian President Raisi on Monday and discussed the Israel-Hamas conflict. In a social media post on X, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "Good exchange of perspectives with President Raisi of Iran on the difficult situation in West Asia and the Israel-Hamas conflict. Terrorist incidents, violence and loss of civilian lives are serious concerns. Preventing escalation, ensuring continued humanitarian aid and early restoration of peace and stability are important. Welcomed the progress in our bilateral cooperation, including on the Chabahar port," unquote. And joining me is my colleague Amritpal Singh. Amrit, any tangible outcomes from Blinken's whirlwind tour of the region?
He had come with the President Biden's message of a humanitarian pause. But when he met with the Israeli leadership, he was told very clearly that a humanitarian pause is not happening, ceasefire is not happening. Benjamin Netanyahu said, unless hostages are released, no ceasefire. There's no question of ceasefire. In fact, as Antony Blinken left for Amman, he made a statement. He told his troops that take the word ceasefire out of your lexicon. So very, maximalist position that the Israelis are taking. Antony Blinken met with the Arab leaders, Jordan King. He met with the Lebanese caretaker prime minister. He met with Mahmoud Abbas. Now he met with the Turks in Ankara. He was told very clearly by the Arab countries that they are looking at a complete unconditional ceasefire. So in that sense, he hasn't gone back with much. Neither have the Israelis agreed, neither have the Arabs been able to, see his point to press upon Hamas to give some concessions. I think the only thing that he has gone back with, that he's been able to get everybody on board, that regional escalation should not take place. If de-escalation is not taking place, it should not, the spillover should not happen. And on that, most countries were of the opinion that yes, it should not escalate beyond where it is right now between Israel and Hamas, and other, everybody who's here should see to it that state actors and non-state actors do not jump into the fray and make things more complicated, Ramesh.
Indeed. Amrit, let's talk a bit, if you will, about India now. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken to President Ibrahim Raisi of Iran. He has spoken to a number of other leaders, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas, King Abdullah of Jordan, President Sisi of Egypt, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of the UK, and UAE's Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Now, India would be one of the few countries to be speaking to all sides, is it not? And what does that tell you about Indian diplomacy?
That's right. India has been speaking to everybody, and India has been, being on both sides and all sides. India has been calling for a voice of reason. When the 7th October attack happened, Prime Minister Modi spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu twice and condemned it in no uncertain terms, that India saw it as an act of terrorism, and there is no place of terrorism in a civilized modern world that we live in. But India also, spoke to the Arab leaders, the latest being the Persian leader, the Iranian leadership, where he unequivocally condemned terrorism. But he said that, loss of civilian lives, the need for increased humanitarian aid and restoring peace and stability are very, very important. They are very crucial, and all players, including Iran, should strive towards that. So India has been consistently advocating that, terrorism, there is no place for terrorism, one. Secondly, conflicts should be resolved through, talking to each other. Even in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, India had taken that stance that it's not an era of war, and dialogue and diplomacy is the only way, and lives of civilians and lives of people should be protected, and all parties concerned should make efforts towards restoring peace and stability. Ramesh.
Also, Amrit, it's day 31 of the conflict. Israel has surrounded, we are told, the Gaza city. At least one report says that the Israeli troops will soon enter the city. What more can you tell us?
That's what we are hearing also, that, they are at the gates of the Gaza city. The IDF admits that they are there with the tanks. They've opened one highway called the Salah highway, which goes from the Gaza city to the south. They've been giving 4-hour pauses and asking them to civilians to vacate. It said there are about 300,000 civilians inside Gaza city and areas around it, the northern Gaza, and they should move to southern Gaza because they would now go in for a close combat attack. So, the next 24 to 48 hours are very crucial. I'm sure they have a lot of specific intelligence, which they, of course, as part of their military strategy, do not share with the media, but they would have specific intelligence where Hamas is. They've also not revealed to us how do they plan to deal with Hamas in the tunnels, because Hamas would get into the tunnels. Would they want to flush them out by either putting water through those tunnels or some kind of a gas through those tunnels, so that when Hamas fighters come up or guerrillas come up overground and then they engage in a close combat. But as I said, the next 24 to 48 hours are very, very crucial, because what we are hearing on the ground is that a crackdown is imminent.
Indeed. And finally, Amrit, you spent the last month reporting from the Israel-Gaza border, the Israel-Lebanon border, where you are now as we speak. As you reported, Israel has again said no ceasefire without the release of the hostages. So are we looking at a prolonged war?
I think so. It will be a prolonged war. And Benjamin Netanyahu has said that it's going to be a difficult, long-drawn war, because, as I said, to finish Hamas, which is their stated military objective, aerial bombing can do only as much, or artillery fire can do only as much, because there is, as you know, there is a vast network of tunnels. So they will have to go into close combat. Now, close combat, the Hamas wouldn't shy away from using civilians as human shields. So the climb would go up. For them to resist international pressure and to reduce the number of civilian casualties, they'll have to go in small numbers, sweep in quick action teams, do Operation Come Out. So that's how they will have to operate. So that will take a lot of time. There are said to be about 40,000 Hamas fighters. So, it looks like that it's going to be protracted. And as far as, ceasefire, both sides, as I said earlier, also are taking maximalist positions.
Indeed.
Netanyahu is saying no ceasefire without release of hostages. Hamas obviously wouldn't release the hostages because they are their bargaining chips. So they are saying stop it first, free our prisoners, let's do a swap. So neither side is listening to each other. And so I think once the military action takes place, then more clarity would emerge on what the fate of the hostage release would be.
All right, we leave it at that, Amrit. Thank you. Amrit Pal Singh reporting from the Israel-Lebanon border. And still to come on DD India News Hour. The education ministers of India and Australia hold talks on mobility and employability of students. The Indian Institute of Technology Madras inaugurates its campus in Zanzibar, Tanzania. And the Indian government launches Bharat Atta or wheat flour as an affordable food grain.
अब क्या देख रहे हो पापा?
तुम कहते हो ना कि स्टॉक मार्केट में बहुत सोच समझकर इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए, बस थोड़ा सा ज्ञान ले रहा हूँ।
किससे?
हर एक स्टॉक्स एक्सपर्ट है, मस्त एजुकेशनल वीडियोस बनाता है और अच्छी इन्वेस्टमेंट की टिप्स भी देता है।
पापा इन वीडियोस पे ना जाएं, अपना रिसर्च खुद करें या सेबी रजिस्टर्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर से संपर्क करें। एजुकेशन के नाम पर कुछ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स अक्सर इन्वेस्टर को मिसगाइड करते हैं, नुकसान आपका होगा।
सोच कर, समझ कर, इन्वेस्ट कर। तुम्हें पता है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एक इन्वेस्टर प्रोटेक्शन फंड होता है IPF। लेकिन अगर तुम्हारा ट्रेड एक्सचेंज पर एग्जीक्यूट नहीं हुआ या फिर कोई गारंटीड रिटर्न्स वाली स्कीम है तो ये IPF आपकी मदद नहीं कर सकता है।
और अगर आपका ब्रोकर ही डिफॉल्टर बन जाए तो
फिर IPF आपको कॉम्पेंसेशन दिला सकता है।
कहां से सीखा?
NSE की साइट पर।
समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. The King of Bhutan, Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuk, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India held discussions on the entire gamut of bilateral cooperation and regional and global issues of mutual interest. The Bhutan King commended the excellent organization of the recently concluded G20 summit hosted by India and forging consensus for constructive decisions and outcomes contained in the Delhi Declaration. He particularly appreciated India's efforts in effectively integrating the interest and priorities of the countries in the Global South in the G20 deliberations and outcome documents. The King of Bhutan extended an invitation to Prime Minister of India to pay an official visit to Bhutan. The Indian Prime Minister has accepted the invitation. The dates for the visit will be decided through diplomatic channels. In his meeting with the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, Chinese President Xi Jinping said that a healthy and stable relationship was important to move forward with their strategic ties. Albanese said that a strong relationship between the two countries was beneficial into the future and that Australia has an interest in the continued stable growth of China's economy and its ongoing engagement with the world. Moving on, the Indian Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution launched the Bharat Atta or wheat flour on Monday to provide affordable food grains to people across the country. The launch was flagged by Union Minister Piyush Goyal and Minister of State Ashwini Chaubey and Sadhvi Niranjan Jyothi in New Delhi as a way forward to check inflation of essential food grains. Debyendu Mondal has more on this.
At a time when the world is gripping through high inflation and many parts of the world living under constant threat for food security, the Indian Prime Minister has announced to continue providing essential food grain to the people at subsidized rates. The Ministry of Food Processing and Public Distribution, in a yet another step, launched Bharat Atta at a subsidized rate. Hundreds of mobile vans rolled out the Kartavya Path in New Delhi. These mobile vans will tour across various parts of India, carrying affordable food grains for the millions of people. The Bharat Atta launched on Monday will be priced at just Rs 27.50 per kg. This launch of the retail sale of Bharat brand Atta will increase supplies in the market at affordable rates. The affordable price will also help to keep the prices of food grains under continued moderation. Union Minister Piyush Goyal, along with other ministers of the Government of India, flagged off these mobile vans that will tour the country providing affordable food grains.
केंद्र सरकार ये व्यवस्था खड़ी कर रही है जिससे चाहे वो मोबाइल वैन हो, चाहे केंद्रीय भंडार हो, चाहे अलग-अलग जो हमारे साधन है केंद्र या राज्य सरकार के पास सामान पहुंचाने का, उसमें सही दाम पर कम कीमत पर उनको उपभोक्ता को खाद्य पदार्थ मिल सके। प्राइस स्टेबलाइजेशन फंड से उसका भुगतान करके किसानों की भी पूरी चिंता करना, 140 करोड़ उपभोक्ता को भी सामान सस्ते में मिल सके, ये वास्तव में पुण्य का काम माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में किया जा रहा है।
The Government of India has allocated 2.5 lakh metric tons of wheat for it to be processed and sold at an affordable price.
2000 लगभग आउटलेट जितने भी देश भर में हैं और कई 700 से भी ज़्यादा गाड़ियां पहले प्याज के लिए, फिर अब आपने देखा कि दाल के लिए भी हम लोगों ने किया था 60 रुपये किलो, नरेंद्र भाई मोदी जी का जो या गरीबों के प्रति जो उनके दिल के अंदर है कि दिवाली छठ में कमज़ोर वर्ग, गरीब तबके के लोग, मध्यम वर्गीय लोग, सबको आटा घर घर मिले।
Not just atta, the government had in the past have also taken various measures to cool off prices. The mobile vans will not just provide affordable atta, but also onions, tomatoes and dal to the millions of people living across the country to ensure affordability. The ministry has also brought in several policy measures, including the imposing of export duties and also a ban on export of rice and wheat to contain the domestic inflation. The 100 of mobile vans that have been rolled out from this Kartavya Path in New Delhi is aiming to provide affordable atta or food grains to across millions of people across the country. Not only through these mobile vans, but also through across the Kendriya Bhandars as well as the central government stores, affordable food grains will be provided to the people of this country to control inflation. With camera person Jagmohan, this is Dibyendu Model from New Delhi for DD India.
The first Australia-India Education and Skill Council meeting was held in the western city of Gandhinagar in Gujarat on Monday. The two sides reviewed bilateral cooperation in education and skilling. The ministers agreed to further strengthen the knowledge and skilling partnerships for greater mobility and employability of people in both countries. India's Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan said that in the rapidly evolving global landscape, the foundation of any nation's prosperity is its youth. Minister Pradhan also said that it is important to fulfill India's commitments towards an inclusive, equitable, high-quality education and skill and vocational training for the next generation. The Indian Institute of Technology Madras became the first IIT in India to set up an international campus by launching one in Tanzania on Monday. India and the East African nation had recently signed a memorandum of understanding. The Zanzibar campus of IIT Madras will be on Zanzibar Island off the East African mainland and part of the Tanzanian Republic. Hussein Ali Minvi, president of Zanzibar and the chair of the Revolutionary Council, inaugurated the IIT Madras Zanzibar at an event held on Monday at the Zanzibar campus in the presence of Tanzanian officials, India dignitaries, faculty and students.
It's a historic day because it is also bringing educational bondage between India and Tanzania, specifically India and Zanzibar. And I would say that this day would not only be remembered as an educational achievement, but it would be remembered as one of the biggest projects that India and Tanzania, India and Zanzibar have ever done. Zanzibar is the confluence of India and Africa. Zanzibar was the point where India came and met Africa, and this was the point from which the Indian traders, Indian diaspora came to not only Eastern Africa, but the whole of Africa.
With faculties recruited from across the world, the Zanzibar campus of the Indian Institute of Technology Madras in Tanzania is going to introduce 5 new programs over 5 years and have 50% Indian students and the rest from the African countries. DD India's Ritesh Ranjan spoke to the IIT Madras director, Professor Kamakoti Viryanathan. Take a listen.
To become Vishwaguru, you have to gain knowledge. And after gaining knowledge, you have to spread the knowledge. Then only you can become Vishwaguru. And IIT Madras is doing the same by opening up a new campus in Zanzibar. Sir, how is this a part of becoming Vishwaguru? Setting up of a campus is also one of the very important aspects of internationalization. So there was a committee constituted by the Ministry of Education, and then they came out with certain recommendations, and we are looking at those recommendations very seriously. And at that point of time, the implementation of opening up of international campus was given to the respective IITs. So we started off, and one of the important steps that we looked at, important 3 points that we looked at was whether they need an education system, that country where we want to go, will they need an education system as big as India, as big as IIT Madras? What would be the need for it first? So what all courses you are introducing in that campus, and faculties are from IIT Madras, or you are engaging people from Tanzania also?
We are opening up 2 courses immediately. The classes have already started in last week of October. We have the BS in Data Science and AI and the MTech in Data Science and AI. We were initially planning about 45 to 50 students. We have filled up all the things. We had just 1.5 months where we went and even created awareness about this campus, what is that course, etc., etc. And IITs and all these brand, everything was done within this short period, and things have worked out very nicely.
The heads of border guarding forces of India and Nepal met in New Delhi on Monday to discuss crucial issues related to the borders. It was the 7th annual coordination meeting between the Sashastra Seema Bal and Nepal's Armed Police Force. It will conclude on the 8th of November. The talks at the level of the heads of the border guarding force serve as a platform for discussions on border-related matters. The meeting is aimed to strengthen the coordination between the 2 border guarding forces for more effective management of the open and unfenced India-Nepal border. The last coordination meeting was held at Kathmandu in September 2022. A seminar on strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive economic growth was organized in New Delhi on Monday, where business leaders and economic experts from across the world share their views on the way forward for a robust economic recovery and growth. The seminar was inaugurated by India's Finance Minister, who shared her views on the New Delhi G20 declaration and the way forward for global economic growth.
The Indian Ministry of Finance, in association with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry and the Ministry of Labour and Employment, organized a seminar on the issue of strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive growth in the backdrop of India's successful G20 presidency. Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who addressed a global audience of economists and business leaders, said that the global and domestic efforts must be made to ensure that growth remains strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive, and also emphasized on how India's presidency of the G20 focused on these areas.
The New Delhi Leaders' Declaration underscores the urgency of implementing well-calibrated macroeconomic and structural policies to bolster equitable growth and enhance macroeconomic and financial stability. I believe we have delivered a G20 presidency that has provided clear policy direction for addressing the needs of the majority of the global population, whose voices are often unheard in global multilateral forums.
The seminar had 3 panel discussions on unlocking trade for growth, preparing for future of work, and advancing financial inclusion.
What WTO says, it is more than 90% enterprises are MSMEs in the world. And therefore, in the Trade and Investment Working Group, we decided that we should look at, the G20 group should look at, how we can make MSMEs better access to trade.
What we consider as a skill now are very quickly are getting outdated, and there is a need for us to reskill as a result. There is always a probability, which has increased over times, of skill mismatch, and these have a far-reaching impact on the economic growth.
Meanwhile, India's chief economic advisor focused on how digital public infrastructure is the key in developing an inclusive economic growth. The New Delhi Declaration came at a time of global economic recovery post-COVID-19 and amid tensions in different parts of the world. And while the declaration was accepted by all the leaders of the G20, the implementation of the set agenda will be key to a robust and sustainable economic growth. Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. West Asia conflict tops G7 foreign ministers' agenda in Tokyo. And millions of US voters to head to the polls on Tuesday in what will be a bellwether ahead of the 2024 presidential election.
आप क्या देख रहे हो पापा?
तुम कहते हो ना कि स्टॉक मार्केट में बहुत सोच समझ कर इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए, बस थोड़ा सा ज्ञान ले रहा हूँ।
किससे?
हर एक स्टॉक्स एक्सपर्ट है, मस्त एजुकेशनल वीडियोस बनाता है और अच्छी इन्वेस्टमेंट की टिप्स भी देता है।
पापा इन वीडियोस पे ना जाएं, अपना रिसर्च खुद करें या सेबी रजिस्टर्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर से संपर्क करें। एजुकेशन के नाम पर कुछ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स अक्सर इन्वेस्टर को मिसगाइड करते हैं, नुकसान आपका होगा।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
तुम्हें पता है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एक इन्वेस्टर प्रोटेक्शन फंड होता है IPF, लेकिन अगर तुम्हारा ट्रेड एक्सचेंज पर एग्जीक्यूट नहीं हुआ या फिर कोई गारंटीड रिटर्न्स वाली स्कीम है तो ये IPF आपकी मदद नहीं कर सकता है।
और अगर आपका ब्रोकर ही डिफॉल्टर बन जाए तो
फिर IPF आपको कॉम्पेंसेशन दिला सकता है।
कहाँ से सीखा?
NSE की साइट पर।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to President Ibrahim Raisi of Iran, discusses the need for de-escalation and restoration of peace in West Asia. Israel rules out the Gaza ceasefire without release of hostages, says Hamas's tunnel network underneath hospitals stands exposed. And US Foreign Minister meets his Turkish counterpart in Ankara as he wraps up a challenging West Asia tour. All right, going back to the top story, India's quest for self-reliance in defense, space, high technology and manufacturing, including shipbuilding. Joining me is Dr. S.K. Jha, the CMD of Midhani. He joins us from Hyderabad. Now, I'll also be joined momentarily by Commodore Sujit Samadda, retired, a former consultant with Niti Aayog and Secretary of the Society for Aerospace, Maritime and Defense Studies from Gurugram. Dr. Jha, if I can start with you, how is the Make in India initiative coming along and how is Midhani contributing to it?
Mr. Dhatu Nigam Limited is involved in the Indianization of various types of materials which finds application in naval, armed forces, air force, and also many other strategic equipments. And we are producing many grades of materials which are very strategic in nature and which is making our country Atmanirbhar in the area of materials. And because of this, you can see the many Indianization program which has picked up the country, like our Tejas, the aircraft. Also, we have made many grades for our development of Kaveri engine. And also, we have done many Indianization for a strategic program of Indian Navy. I think those are the, and another one is in the area of space, where recently when you have seen the Chandrayaan-3, which has gone to the south pole of the moon, as many materials used in Chandrayaan-3, either in the rocket or launcher, and also in the spacecraft that is in the rover, and Pragyan has gone from Midhani. And that way, we have contributed a number of unique materials for India's space program. And now the currently running the Gaganyaan also is having many grades, varieties of materials coming from Mr. Dhatu Nigam Limited, which includes ultra high strength special steels, titanium alloys of the various grades, and also the super alloys. And due to that, our entire ISRO program is self-reliant, I can say, not only for the design, development, and area of their engineering, but also having the own developed materials coming from within the country.
Indeed. Dr. Jha, what are the policy initiatives taken by the Indian government over the last 8 or 9 years to boost self-reliance in key sectors that involve Midhani, for instance, or allied sectors as well?
Yeah, in fact, if you see last 7 to 8 years, the Ministry of Defense under the Department of Defense Production, due to the various policy intervention and emphasis on development of the equipments and also the materials within the country, many Indianization program has taken off. And in this context, I would like to mention about the 85 Tejas aircraft, which is being manufactured by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, and also the many the warships which India is getting developed within the own country has also come. And recently the launch of the crest for the warships, that is 15B, the missile destroyer, that is Surat, which you have seen recently. Today itself crest has been launched for that warships. So many warships have come by our shipyards, and also the electronics part has been taken care by Bharat Electronics Limited, and our all ordnance, erstwhile ordnance factories which have been converted in the 7 defense PSU. All around the development is good, and last year the the production of defense equipments and materials has crossed more than the lakh crores, and also the export has significantly gone up, almost to 16,000 crores. So these are the indications of the importance of Indianization. And not only we are stopping here. In fact, if you see now the entire defense production is targeted to 1.75 lakh crores by 2025, and also the export is going to see touching the figure of 35,000 crores in next 2 to 3 years.
Right.
So overall, the initiative, the policy changes, and also declaring many items under the negative list has helped the country to achieve the self-reliance in the area of defense production, and also getting the significant foothold in the area of export. I will say the export has only started the initiation, but there's many opportunities are available for the export also. And shortly you will find that numbers are also going to increase as far as the Indian export is concerned to the other countries.
Dr. Jha, we've spoken about the road traveled in the last many years. Now, looking ahead, do you have a wish list of sorts? What's on your wish list, say, for the future in terms of either policy or priority or both?
Yeah, our wish list for Indian industry is again to continue the Indianization program, which has picked up now, and the very negative list of certain items or defense equipments which has been announced. There the orders are expected to come in the different stages of the time. So Indian industry is really looking for that. As far as the policy part is concerned, I think many changes have taken place, and we are expecting that some more materials which has been denied in the country will be coming as a negative list in the future. And I think on this direction, a lot of work is going on. At the same time, we are also trying to see that how the many materials which we are importing as a raw material for our taking the different alloys in our country, that also we should develop within India. So that is also going on, like development of titanium sponge, development of production of many rare earths metals. So these are the focus areas for the defense industry. And shortly you will see that many announcements will be there, many policy interventions will be there. So that will also take our country towards the indigenization of critical raw materials.
Absolutely. And before we close, Dr. Jha, one last query. Do rare earths fall in your mandate, the mandate of Midhani, in terms of discovery of new deposits and so on?
No, we are not directly involved in that. But of course, we see the requirements depend on the various end products which is coming up. So based on that, we are seeing the requirements. So once the requirement will go up, the need for production also will start in the country. And I am sure that since all around the development is coming in the indigenization of various grades of materials, the equipment in the country, the requirement of rare earths also is now being seen now. And I am sure that in the many initiatives have been taken in this direction. So shortly we'll find that we'll be having this type of material production of rare earths also in our country, which will really make India self-reliant in the area of many areas, not only defense. In fact, it will also cover in the space, aerospace, and other industries.
Dr. Jha, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Moving on, millions of US voters will head to the polls on Tuesday with key races in the 3 states of Kentucky, Mississippi, and Virginia. There is also a vote to enshrine abortion rights into the Constitution of the state of Ohio. The result of these races will be the first indicators of what voters are focusing on ahead of the 2024 presidential election, which is now just 1 year away. Tony Waterman has more.
As the clock ticks down to Tuesday's elections, candidates are out in full force. A last-ditch effort to wrangle new voters and rally supporters.
It's because of each and every one of you here that we are going to win on Tuesday, November 7th.
Andy Beshear is fighting to keep his job as Kentucky governor. A Democrat in a deeply red conservative state, he's employed an interesting tactic, boasting about the benefits of Bidenomics without actually mentioning the president directly.
An unpopular president drags the party down. This is what we saw with Trump in 2020. A president who's personally popular will be able to gather seats.
Right now, Joe Biden's approval rating is hovering around 40%, hardly enough to coalesce voters in red states. It's a bit hazier in purple states like Virginia, where every seat in the state legislature is up for grabs. A Republican win would empower Governor Glenn Youngkin to enact conservative policies on abortion, taxes, and education, making it one of the most closely watched races in the country.
Because Virginia is a battleground state, both parties look at Virginia as looking to see which issues are working. And if there are issues that are working in Virginia, those are going to be the issues we see in the fall 2024 election.
One big unknown is whether anti-abortion policies will galvanize voters like it did in the midterms. Ohio may provide answers.
The leading opponents of Issue 1 want an extreme ban on abortion, with no exceptions for rape, not even for children.
Voters in the swing state will decide Tuesday whether to enshrine abortion rights into the state's constitution.
If they look and say, wow, it still has traction, it's definitely going to be a big issue. For the Republicans, they're going to look at the economy.
The outcome of Tuesday's elections will provide valuable insight into what issues are and aren't top of mind for voters headed into 2024. Those elections now just a year away,
giving candidates from both parties ample time to adjust their strategies. In Austin, Texas, Tony Waterman reporting for DD India.
The Republican team to back me up, and I promise.
The conflict in West Asia is expected to dominate the agenda when top diplomats from G7 countries meet in Tokyo on Tuesday. The foreign ministers are wrapping up a year of G7 meetings as Japan looks to successfully conclude its presidency of the group. Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
G7 foreign ministers meet here in Tokyo next week. It is going to be the conflict in the Middle East that will be top of the agenda. That wasn't always the case. When Japan's foreign minister Yoko Kamikawa originally called this summit back in September, the goal was simply an end-of-year catch-up, a wrap of all the meetings, G7 meetings so far, a catch-up on how member countries are doing on their goals and their priorities stated in those meetings, such as countering perceived Chinese military assertiveness while maintaining independent economic and diplomatic ties with Beijing, supporting Ukraine in its conflict against Russia, cooperating on climate change and AI regulation and a myriad of other topics. But it is going to be Israel's ongoing bombardment of Gaza, democratic calls around the world for a ceasefire. These issues are going to be discussed. Japan is going to be concerned. It is going to be wary of analysts' speculations that the U.S. resources, the military resources going towards Israel at the moment and going towards Ukraine at the moment, may be depleting military resources that could be coming in this direction towards Japan, towards South Korea, and the U.S.'s ability, pledged ability to protect Japan and South Korea's interests in what it calls a free and open Indo-Pacific. Japan is going to be looking for reassurances from U.S. State Secretary Antony Blinken that this part of the world remains a priority for the U.S. and certainly a meeting that South Korea is going to be watching very closely as well. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo reporting for DD India.
In Bangladesh, the second day of a countrywide 48-hour blockade is underway with some incidents of violence and arson. The blockade is being enforced by the main opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party and its allies to force Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's party to quit and hold elections under a caretaker government. The 48-hour-long blockade sparked stray incidents of violence. More than 15 buses were burnt by mobs. The blockade affected public transport, which led to a scarcity of essentials. 228 platoons of the Border Guard Bangladesh have been deployed across the country to maintain law and order. And my colleague Naval Singh Parmar joins us from Dhaka. What can you tell us about the situation in Bangladesh in the wake of this 48-hour call? Is it better or worse today as compared to yesterday?
Yes, today there were some peace on road of the Dhaka as well as the other part of Bangladesh. But today evening, opposition announced another phase of blockade, which will start from Wednesday morning. So this will be the third phase of blockade. First, they announced for 3 days blockade. Then this one was for 2 days, and another 2 days blockade will start from Wednesday morning. So there is a tension, and the peoples are very apprehensive about their livings, and those who are daily wagers and the office goer, they are in tension that they are facing problem with the transportation, their safeties are there. So situation is tense here in Bangladesh, and political deadlock is there. BNP is adamant on its demand for their one-point agenda. At the same time, government, Awami League government is also not in a mood to bow down to the demand of the opposition. There are no sign of dialogue from the either side of the political party. So it may continue during this week, and the law enforcement agency are doing well. They are providing protection to the people who are moving and who are having a vehicle. But during night time, there are, yesterday night also, there were some incidents. And today evening, I got some report that they torched a double-decker bus, public transport bus in Dhaka. So this kind of incidents are occurring, and it is now becoming a pattern that daily there are some incidents during the night time.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Naval Singh Parmar in Dhaka, thank you. Much appreciated. And still to come on DD India News Hour. The 54th International Film Festival of India will be held in Goa from 20th to 28th November.
अब क्या देख रहे हो पापा?
तुम कहते हो ना कि स्टॉक मार्केट में बहुत सोच समझकर इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए, बस थोड़ा सा ज्ञान ले रहा हूँ।
किससे?
हर एक स्टॉक्स एक्सपर्ट है, मस्त एजुकेशनल वीडियोस बनाता है और अच्छी इन्वेस्टमेंट की टिप्स भी देता है।
पापा इन वीडियोस पे ना जाएं, अपना रिसर्च खुद करें या सेबी रजिस्टर्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर से संपर्क करें। एजुकेशन के नाम पर कुछ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स अक्सर इन्वेस्टर को मिसगाइड करते हैं, नुकसान आपका होगा।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
तुम्हें पता है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एक इन्वेस्टर प्रोटेक्शन फंड होता है IPF, लेकिन अगर तुम्हारा ट्रेड एक्सचेंज पर एग्जीक्यूट नहीं हुआ या फिर कोई गारंटीड रिटर्न्स वाली स्कीम है तो ये IPF आपकी मदद नहीं कर सकता है।
और अगर आपका ब्रोकर ही डिफॉल्टर बन जाए तो
फिर IPF आपको कॉम्पेंसेशन दिला सकता है।
कहाँ से सीखा?
NSE की साइट पर।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. The Embassy of India in Riyadh celebrated Sanskrit Day, showcasing the vibrancy of the Sanskrit language and recognizing the dedicated efforts of the Indian community in preserving it in Saudi Arabia. The event, called Samskritotsava, was conducted entirely in Sanskrit and was organized in collaboration with Samskrita Bharati. The first of its kind event aims to promote the significance and learning of Sanskrit, one of the most ancient languages in the world. The 54th International Film Festival of India will be held from 20th to 28th of November in Goa. DD India's Kriti Vadhera reports.
Goa is all set to host the biggest international film festival of India. Addressing a press conference of the curtain raiser of IFFI 2023, Minister of Information and Broadcasting Anurag Thakur said that ranked fifth largest market globally, India's media and entertainment industry is a force to reckon with.
If you look at the average growth of the last 3 years, it stands at average growth of 20% annually. So with the highest production of films in the world, our industry stands as a beacon of innovation, creativity, reaching every corner of the country, and now cutting across the boundaries, reaching every nook and corner of the world.
Speaking on the occasion, Dr. L. Murugan, Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting, said IFFI is a unique festival to have cultural exchanges through silver screen and to give international exposure to Indian cinema.
This festival is every year new thing we are introduced. We attended the global festivals like Cannes. There we taken away something and we introduced here.
India's media and entertainment industry market is growing every year with an average annual growth of 20% in the last 3 years. The movies made in India have covered every corner of the country and are now reaching the distant corners of the world. OTT platforms in India have witnessed massive boom in recent years. Special awards for OTTs will also be given in IFFI this year. Best of Indian cinemas will be screened in this festival, amongst which 25 will be featured and 20 will be non-featured films.
3 times we have had the international submissions, and not just in quantity, but I'll assure you that in quality also the submissions this year have been really good.
15 films are taking part in international category for Golden Peacock Award, in which 3 will be Indian films. 5 international and 2 Indian films will compete for the coveted Silver Peacock. Exclusive arrangements for delegates with special needs will make this festival distinctive. Kriti Vadhera for DD India.
And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website, ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.